Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Business Influence Podcast with me, Leroy Mark. We're still at the IMC 2025. Under the guise of Marketing is Business, joined in studio by Nomzamo Moalusi, who is at Primedia Outdoor. Hello, Nomzamo.
Hi, Leroy.
You and I had a whole chat and it was stopped by the crew because we actually came here to work because influencers and marketing is work.
100%.
I find it interesting that you are at Primedia Outdoor, which is very different from Primedia Broadcasting.
Yeah.
You deal with the billboards and the out of sort of home marketing. Some would say there's no place for, billboards anymore because everyone is glued to their cell phones. Would you agree?
Absolutely not.
Exactly.
So there's that famous term that we're outside.
Yeah.
Everyone says we're outside. When you are outside, especially if you live in South Africa,
Yeah.
we are stimulated by all sorts of messages, right? So not only your phone, but you're being stimulated by billboards, you're being stimulated by people that are walking on the road, people who are selling you stuff, people who are wiping your windscreen. So when we speak about out of home, we say that actually we are the biggest media industry. So yes, social media can reach outside of borders, but out of home, you're being stimulated by out of home wherever you are. Billboards, why billboards will never go out of fashion, why billboards will never die, is because billboards are the one thing that you can't skip or scroll past or swipe right or swipe left. You can't pass a billboard. Yes, you might not remember every billboard you see, but you will at least see I want to say 50 on average billboards in your commute in a day.
You don't realize how many you see on a daily basis until one of them captures your mind and you start
100%.
looking out for it. But I'm very interested in sort of this very big tension between sort of digital and analog, right? Because lots of people still feel like, and I think out of home is still seen as like print, almost an extension of print.
Sure.
And how people who are marketing in that space have to be very creative because often you have like 3, 4, 5 seconds to catch someone's attention and then it's gone.
100%.
And they might not see the billboard again for a few weeks.
100%. So I think that is the role of marketers, right? To be creative, to be innovative in an attention economy where you can only concentrate for 3 seconds. You really are going to capture people in that 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So as a creative, as a marketer, you've got to be creative. You've got to think about how do I capture them in the first 3 seconds of passing this billboard. Thank God we've passed the kind of things aren't being able to change because we do have static billboards, but there's also digital billboards.
Yes.
Digital billboards allow you to be, it's endless, from your messaging, from being quirky, from the images you use. So digital has allowed us to be quite flexible. Brands such as Pineapple, Naked, as you know, have done a really great job. Netflix has a really good campaign as well around making sure that because theirs is not digital. They've got a very specific site I'm talking about on Winnie Mandela.
And the N1.
Yes. And that's, it's always being changed to whatever's happening, what's current trends. What
Remember it was at some point
about.
it was Squid Games, then it was
100%.
Wednesday, then it was the koalas.
Yes, Love Island.
Yeah.
So they're always keeping things quite fresh as well. And how you tie it with digital is people take content or people talk about it and they're like, oh, did you see that really good billboard by Netflix or by Naked? So it does become it is a good merge between digital and out of home.
But how do you then sell this idea to brands who are of the view that if it's not on Instagram or it's not on those platforms, it didn't happen? And also, how do you quantify the value of having that billboard? Because fortunately or unfortunately, it's also quite an expensive exercise
100%.
to get that super huge artwork on the side of the highway.
100%. So I think one of the misconceptions of outdoor or out of home is the price. So yes, it is expensive, but because it's now digital, you don't have the production costs, right?
Okay.
So you're not printing out the production costs aren't as high because it's digital. So you're creating something that potentially lives on digital, like social media, and are repurposing it for outdoor. So you're already from a cost perspective, from a production of a campaign, you've reduced that cost. But then on top of that, I think you need to create campaigns that are talkable, that have the talkability. So you've got to think about it and say, okay, well, as Naked, we want to talk about Thabo got naked at the Christmas party, or Leroy got naked at wherever, and that that talkability from the billboard to social media links very well. And our sites now, because they're digital, you can quantify. So you can, I mean, we can show you how many eyes were on that billboard
Okay.
in 30 minutes. We can tell you the traffic. So we've got like mobility stats. We've got how many eyes have seen this billboard. We can tell you just on William Nicol, 75,000 cars have passed in the past hour. So there's a lot of stats that have now been put together that can truly show you the return on investment on something like out of home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all linked in now. I mean, if I think about somewhere like Times Square,
Yeah.
you know, just being in Times Square and all those screens that are around there.
Yeah.
People are taking photos when they see themselves. So that, you know, even somebody of the likes of Serena Williams or someone popular, right?
Tyler did the same.
Tyler, 100%. Just seeing yourself on a billboard and taking a photo and posting on social media, that already in itself has tied two platforms from an influencer perspective, but also from people who just generally seeing themselves on a billboard or seeing your campaign on a billboard. It's like,
it's done this wonderful thing, and I'm sorry to interject because it reminds me of something that we chat about at Style ID when we do our trends analysis.
Yes.
That you know, people really like this idea of being able to verify the authenticity, but
100%.
even the credibility
100%.
of any brand. Because if it's on a billboard, it had to go so many steps.
Levels,
You know what I mean?
100%.
It's like if your mom, she still needed to see it in the newspaper to believe
that it's real.
It's real.
100%.
Like, you know, I keep making the example. We use digital banks, for instance.
Yes.
I was okay when I saw that my digital bank has headquarters.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I can go there.
Yes, I
can
believe
really
you. And
find
that
it.
is very true. I mean, we ran a campaign where we were promoting specific women, and we were saying, okay, it's Women's Month, and we're promoting, and these are quite senior women in the industry. But even at that level, seeing themselves and seeing like, you know, seeing them on billboards. I mean, their kids were phoning them, their husbands, partners, all sorts of things were phoning them, taking photos. And people did such great work. I mean, it then translated into a campaign online, which is then social media and LinkedIn. So I think you are right about that. It almost feels like I've made it, like Mom, I've made it.
Yeah.
There was a Wimbledon, the US Open guy, I can't think of his name now, but same, he took his mom and said like, look at me, I'm like on this huge billboard. So there is some sort of street cred maybe.
Yeah, it is.
Or like something.
It's also a way to prove that a moment in time actually existed.
100%.
Because again, I think as we talk about like social media as an example, you know, when you go on X, I say a word, it disappears into the ether.
100%.
Whereas this thing stands there and it is encapsulated in time.
100%.
And it does what
100%.
television used to do, right? Where you'd see like, oh my God, I saw myself on
TV. Absolutely.
Now it's a billboard.
Absolutely.
I'm interested to chat to you about how then do you get brands to realize that yes, in a world of first digital, first always online on social media, that the outdoor space is still where people are.
Yeah.
You know, those strategies to go to say, okay, punchy. I mean, you've mentioned a few of those brands who are really getting it right, like Netflix, like Pineapple Insurance is one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
How do you get them to go, okay, we've got the space, but you really have to make the content really engaging and not just as we have to have a billboard somewhere because I don't know, another insurer has one there too.
100%. So I think, I mean, a billboard is just a platform. So is, you know, social media, or so is, you know, newspaper or magazine, as you've mentioned. So what you do with the platform is then what matters. Billboard is part of your strategy. So it's not the strategy, you know, it wouldn't be the only single kind of, I mean, even from a Pineapple and Naked perspective, billboards aren't the only platform they're using their strategy. They still need to tie it back to digital, as you're saying, as a first digital led company. But you have to sell to the company that this thing can be measured. Because as marketers, we always have to prove that there's return on investment on every cent spent. You know, and people say, oh, how am I going to prove that, you know, billboard, or how am I going to prove that there'll be return on investment? So at first with brands, you're showing that we can prove the return on investment.
Absolutely.
We can give you these stats. We can give you this data. And data will then prove that out of the data and intelligence we share with you, it can prove the return on investment. But the billboard is not it's one thing that's in your entire strategy, right? So you're looking at an entire campaign, you're saying, okay, maybe African Bank is launching their 50th year campaign as an example. They have an entire strategy of where do we need to find these people? Who's the audience? How are we trying to engage them? Maybe you're trying to highlight perhaps heritage in South Africa, or you know, like lineage. I know African Bank is very big with, you know, who started African Bank, the history of African Bank, all of that. So there's a big part that, you know, out of home is just, it's part of your strategy, but it ties in with the other platforms. So being creative just means you've got to think about that whole 360. You got to think
The
about
whole
that whole journey
suite.
and put yourself in your audience's shoes. Like, where do they go? Where do they hang out? What are their pain points? Yes, they're on social media, but they're not. There's also other things they do. They go to the mall. Maybe you can capture them in the mall. Maybe somebody, you know, like you're saying, someone's buying a newspaper for their grandma, their mom, or their dad, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a 360
I'm
approach.
so interested in an angle that was highlighted to me when I traveled recently. I was back in the homelands of KZN, and how certain billboards are there to be able to also foster some sort of change in a community.
100%.
Because, for instance, you talk about, say, you're doing a campaign for like maybe Postbank or the South African, you know, Social Security Agency or something like that, where sometimes those billboards where they're placed are able to really make an impact in a community.
Absolutely.
If you're able to see, I don't know, a billboard of particular, you know, long distance learning institute, for instance, in the rural areas where we know education is not a big thing.
100%.
The brands also need to be very aware, apart from the foot traffic who's able to buy the product, it's also about the awareness that you might be able to drive. 100%. Which leads me then to this big question that is, how do you ensure that, you know, in this journey of marketing, in your opinion, we still remain like authentically about the people, when increasingly it's not people led, it's more about sales led?
100%. Yeah. So I think something Primedia does quite well, and not just because I work at Primedia.
Well,
but something that Primedia
but we love
does,
Primedia.
but something they do quite well is they do care for the environments that they operate in. So when you speak about broadcasting, and just Primedia as a whole, there's a big, you know, focus in our business around the arts and culture industry and this creative economy, and like really uplifting young, creative, talented people who are in this economy and who are making this economy thrive. You know, I know now there's all the focus on like Amapiano, and that became the biggest thing. But just like a creative economy is it's a big, and not that it's up and coming, but it's you know, like it's a big booming industry at the moment. So there is a big care culture from a business perspective. And when you speak about the billboards, why I was like nodding my head so profusely is like, in the time that I've been there, the structures aren't just structures. So you are right. We've got a structure where we're providing solar from our billboard to an intersection. So if you live in Johannesburg, you know when a robot is out.
That Winnie Mandela one you talk about.
That Winnie Mandela, 100%. That's Santon Drive and Winnie Mandela. So you know if you live in Johannesburg, if one robot is out and there's no Nyaupe boy directing traffic, it's a nightmare. So when we build structures, it's not like, here's a structure, here's a billboard, we want to make money out of this. But it's also like, what can we do to make this community better? So do we build a billboard and ensure that we keep an intersection on? So there is a billboard, it's got solar wires and all sorts of things, and it ensures that that intersection is never out.
And I think the communities are, and this is why I think, you know, going back to the conversation around marketing is business. But also, I think also we need to be, you know, extending that to marketing is also community.
100%.
Because you're not marketing to the ether, you're marketing to people 100%. And they exist in a structure, in a world.
100%.
And that's why I think the idea, especially with your community there over at Primedia, one of your assets, 702, what they've done with the Assurance Pointsman has always been, for me, such a wonderful legacy of how, you know, it's one thing to say you care, it's one thing to get me
actually
to work on time.
100%.
You know?
And it's making the lives of so many people easier, right?
And I'm not with Assurance. I don't work for 702, but I get the benefit too.
100%, yeah.
In 10 seconds, maybe let's say 30, where do you see the world of outdoor marketing going? Because it really is one of those interesting places where I don't think people have really grappled well with it. But it's so much part of our lives. You said, like, you know, on average, someone can see up to 50 billboards on their way to work. Where's it going? We're looking at it next 5 years or so.
As you said, and you started the conversation around being we're in a very digitally focused world. I think where out of home is going is that it's gonna expand faster and faster and faster. So if you compare Johannesburg and you compare, what's another big city? So if you compare Johannesburg and you compare maybe Cape Town as an example, or another city, maybe like somewhere in Kenya, Nairobi, maybe, to then the biggest out of home capital, which is New York, and we always use Times Square as the where the world is. And when I compare what out of home is there and what it is here, it's ramping up, and I mean crazy. It's ramping up. The content needs to be dynamic, needs to be fast. So production times, putting up artwork, things being very quick is where we need to go. So somebody needs to be able to write a message on their iPad and say, "Will you marry me, Leroy?" And it must appear on like 10 billboards at one time. It must be like, "Leroy, will you marry me?" And it appears instantly. Or you're driving down, Winnie Mandela, and we do have this capabilities. It's just that, perhaps the turnaround time.
Yeah.
So we can do things like weather triggers. So we can say like, hey, Joburgers, good morning, please be safe on the road. So we can
It's
do that across
raining,
our
yeah.
screens. We can do that. We've got that capability.
And can I tell you, sorry to deviate,
Yes.
but I use the M1 South on a regular basis. And on
Yes.
the right, there's a building there. I don't know what it is, but it's in Marshalltown side.
Yes.
And it has the temperature, the time, and something else.
Yes.
I don't realize that I've driven that road for as long as I've been driving.
Yes.
And I instinctively look at the time and the weather when I drive up
When
there.
you go past,
Yeah.
100%.
I literally go and I go,
100%. Now you know you're on time.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
100%. So whether you can be dynamic on time, you can do personalized things like I was saying, like, good morning, or there's an accident ahead,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So I think where out of home is going is it's going to be more precision data reporting.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to truly tell your clients and brands how many people have seen this, like what are the exact stats and data. So it's becoming much more dynamic, and it will be. This is maybe controversial, but it will be paired with social media. So social
Yes.
media isn't going to be completely
separate.
Where it's kind of like, oh, social media is so fast and you can report on it, and out of home isn't, because actually they're quite on par, and the amount of data we hold in the business is like,
I think it's
crazy. Yeah.
I think we've only just started scraping the opportunities that it has, because I
Absolutely.
realize how, just like we thought radio would die when we
Yes.
had podcasting, it's just enhanced each other. They really have enhanced each other.
100%.
And I think out of home does a wonderful thing where it's a marker in your day, it's a place to giggle, it's a place to de-stress, something that reminds you of something, it's a
100%.
nostalgia.
100%.
And I think out of home connects in a different way, but a very powerful way with the people who are
100%.
enjoying it.
100%.
And we're so glad that you're here making sure we get those.
Yes.
So,
So you're
my
booking
only
your
other
next-
question is,
You're
when is
booking your
my...
next- when is your proposal on the
For my billboard.
Yeah,
For my-
for your billboard.
When
When is the billboard?
billboard?
Please, the billboard.
And we need the picture for my billboard for
Yeah,
Nomzamo. All right,
yes.
thank you very much. Nomzamo from Primedia Idol. Thank you so much. And I told you, big heavy hitters, man. So next time you drive past a billboard and you see me, you know who did it. Nomzamo did. We'll be right back.
Listening? Damn.